easy. This is Raf Molecular with DNB Academy, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be looking at how you can pick up drums with no transient that sound pretty much like this, quite flammy, and turn them into something like this, or like this, without using Transient Designers. Okay, so basically I've got the same loop here. You can see that it doesn't really have much transient in there. There is something, but it's just low volumes. What we're going to do here today to give the transient back to this sound is, first we're going to use compression on the first version, and the second version we're going to use volume shaping. Now, the reason why I said no Transient Designers is because these plugins can often be quite expensive and they only serve one purpose, which is being a transient designer. Now, a compressor plugin, Ableton and most DAWs, they come with a compressor and you can use it for many different purposes. And the second plugin that we're going to use is ShaperBox, which can be used for probably thousands of different things. I personally use it for loads and loads and loads of different things. So let's look at the first method here. What I'm doing with the first method is I am basically compressing the second part of the sound. I'm not compressing the transients. And how am I doing this? So for that to happen, you need to understand the basics of compression. So basically, what a compressor does is it compresses or reduces the level of your sound. Now, the way that it's going to act is you need to tell it the threshold. It's not just going to compress. You need to tell it how loud the sound has to be for the compressor to start compressing. If you put the threshold at minus infinite, that means that anything will be compressed. Now, if you put the threshold at minus 20 dBs, for example, only sound that surpasses that minus 20 threshold is going to be compressed. Now then there's the ratio, which how much compression you want. For here I'm going with an infinite to 1 ratio, which is basically limiting, it's quite harsh. Nothing will go louder than that amount. And then you have attack and release. Now this is the key element here to be able to do something like this, give transients to sounds. Basically, attack is how long the compressor takes to start compressing after the sound has gone through the threshold. And the release is how long the sound stays compressed even after it's no longer going through the threshold. So it surpasses the threshold, the attack starts, it goes away from the threshold, the release starts. Okay, so basically, if you look at drums and how transient works, you'll see that most transients are from 5 milliseconds to 15 milliseconds long. So in theory, if we have a super harsh compressor that's compressing all your drums, and then you increase the attack to 15 milliseconds, the compressor will not compress fast enough to compress your transients. And that will mean that everything gets compressed except for the transients. Therefore, the transients will be louder than the rest of the sound. Now, depending on the drums, if it has a lot of transient, you don't need to do much of this. If it has no transient, you're going to need to do loads of this. So here's what we're doing. This is my compressor instance. I'm going to deactivate it for a second. And I'm going to bring the attack down and the release down. And I'm going to bring the threshold all the way up. So this is our input signal right here. And right now we're not doing any compression. But if we start bringing it down, so now we're compressing the snare by around 4 dB. It's not a lot, but we're already compressing it. Now I wanted to compress the kick as well. And of course, we're listening to the wrong track. So let's go back to 0. So this is our track here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the attack at 0, release at 0, dry wet 100%, ratio all the way up so you can hear this compression, and let's start compressing. Okay, we can hear something now. The snare is being compressed. We can already feel some punch from the snare. Now we're compressing everything. We can kind of hear the punch from the kick and snare. Now if I increase the release, you'll see the compression curve, the yellow curve, just stays there for longer. And if I increase the attack, we can start to hear some of those transients. There we go. That's the transient. And we can use Vision 4X or any other waveform plugin oscilloscope to visualize this. If we bring the attack down, we barely have a transient in there. There's a 0.01 millisecond. We can also turn on look ahead. And there, that click is gone. So now we have transients. Let's go for 5 milliseconds. We can really zoom in. It's just a couple oscillations, 1, 2, 1. So let's go a bit further. Let's go 10 milliseconds. One, two, yeah. So that's already enough. Now what we can do is we can increase the output. And bring down the dry wet. Massive difference. We've brought some transients back to this sound. There we go. Now let's look at the second method here. It's going to be using ShaperBox. I'm just going to duplicate this and start fresh. Like I said, ShaperBox is going to be used for multiple different things. And let's pick up volume here and let's just audition the sound. Let's first put this at the start of the chain so there's no latency. Now we could literally just draw in there, but I want to make this easier for us. So I'm going to use audio as a trigger. So every time it detects new audio or loud audio, it's going to re-trigger. So we literally just need to, play with this first area here. Let's go for 1/4. So we have a more zoomed in control. And now let's change the settings of this audio input trigger. So obviously this is drums. Let's bring down the input filter and we can listen to it. I just want it to work with the kick and snare. There we go, perfect. Now what I can do is bring down the first initial moments of the sound. We can use this in time if we want. So you can see the milliseconds in there. It's roughly 30, so this would be roughly 16, 17. This would be around 9. We're letting that transient exist in there and everything else is being turned down. Now we can increase the level overall. A lot harder transients. And now we can bring the mix down. crazy difference. Now, last method, bonus point here. One thing that you can do if you're on Ableton is you can literally just do this, Command E, and really increase that transient, fade it in, do the same thing here, fade it in there, and I'm going to do the same thing. This kick barely exists, so I'll just ignore it, and we can do this here, and there you go, and then just copy this over here, copy this over here, and copy this over here. Perfect. I mean, if we just keep looping it like this, you can see the difference. That's a very effective way of doing it if you have Ableton. If you don't have Ableton, you can use compressor. If you don't have a compressor, you can use ShaperBox. I'm sure you have a compressor. So this was RAF Molecular with DNB Academy. We hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace!